I was at my friend's house, a typical suburban home surrounded by trees that whispered in the night wind. It was a night like any other, but a subtle unease kept me awake. As I tossed and turned in bed, I felt my throat dry and decided I needed water. The house was immersed in silence, except for the faint sound of my friend snoring softly in the next room. I crept downstairs, trying not to make any noise. The wooden floor creaked beneath my feet, and the darkness seemed to weigh on me as I approached the kitchen. The faint moonlight partially illuminated the hallway, casting long, distorted shadows on the walls. A sense of discomfort grew within me, but I ignored it, attributing it to my interrupted sleep. I opened the fridge, feeling the chill of the interior light wash over me. I grabbed a jug of water and drank directly from it, listening only to the sound of the liquid trickling down my throat. I closed the fridge, and it was at that moment that I heard a faint click coming from the direction of the living room. I froze, straining to listen, and realized someone was fiddling with the front door lock. Curiosity took hold of me. Slowly, I approached the hallway leading to the entrance of the house. The silhouette of a woman stood out against the door, and my heart raced as I recognized my friend's mother. She was facing away from me, carefully locking the door, as if trying not to be heard. Shock rooted me in place. I knew my friend's mother was out of town. He had told me so earlier. I started to back away, but the wood creaked under my weight, and she turned abruptly. Our eyes met for a brief moment, but something was off about her. Her eyes were empty, lifeless, as if she didn't really see me. She moved toward me with a slow, dragging gait, as if being pulled by some invisible string. The air around me seemed to grow colder with each step she took. My legs trembled, but I managed to turn around and run to my friend's room. The door slammed shut behind me, and I shook my friend as hard as I could. He woke up, confused, rubbing his eyes. "What's wrong?" he mumbled groggily. I quickly recounted what I had seen, trying not to sound crazy. When I mentioned his mother, he froze, his face instantly pale. "My mom isn't here. She's miles away, visiting my aunt," he said, his voice trembling. The fear in his voice made me realize something was terribly wrong. He quickly got up and locked the bedroom door, placing a chair to reinforce it. We fell silent, ears straining for any sound from the hallway. The silence that followed was overwhelming, broken only by our heavy breathing. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours. The air in the room grew oppressive, as if we were being watched. Finally, we heard soft footsteps in the hallway, slowly approaching the door. I could feel my heart pounding in my throat. My friend grabbed his phone and began dialing frantically, but there was no signal. The footsteps stopped right in front of the door. Suddenly, the doorknob began to turn slowly, accompanied by a faint scratching sound on the wood. "Don't open it," I whispered, gripping my friend's arm. He nodded, eyes wide with fear. The door shuddered, as if someone was gently pushing, testing the resistance of the chair. Then, everything stopped. The silence returned, but it was different now, denser, more threatening. The door no longer moved, and the sound of footsteps retreating echoed down the hallway. We remained frozen, unsure if we should feel relieved or even more terrified. Time seemed to stretch, each second elongating into an eternity of terror. My friend finally broke the silence. "This can't be happening," he whispered, as if trying to convince himself. But the truth was clear. Something was very wrong with this house. We decided we couldn't stay there any longer. We needed to leave, but the thought of facing whatever was out there was terrifying. Gathering our courage, we decided to escape through the bedroom window. With difficulty, we pried it open and slipped outside. The cold night air enveloped us as we landed on the damp grass. We crouched for a moment, listening for any sign that we were being followed. Everything was quiet, but the stillness only heightened our fear. We started running through the yard, heading for the street. The trees around us seemed taller and more menacing under the moonlight. When we reached the gate, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed behind us. We looked back and saw my friend's mother standing at the edge of the garden, watching us with those empty eyes. She didn't move, but something in her gaze made us run faster. We sprinted like never before, the sound of our hearts pounding in our ears. We reached the deserted street and kept running until the house was far behind us. Finally, we stopped, panting and sweating, trying to process what had happened. We took refuge in a nearby playground, where we sat on a bench, still in shock. The silence of the night seemed to mock us. We tried calling my friend's parents again, but the phone was still out of service. Something was isolating us, trapping us in this endless night of terror. Time passed slowly, and the sky began to lighten with the first rays of dawn. We felt a momentary relief, as if the light could dispel whatever malevolent presence had been with us. When we returned to the house, we found the front door ajar, gently swaying in the morning breeze. My friend entered first, cautiously, and I followed. The house looked normal, almost welcoming in the daylight. But the discomfort lingered, a shadow that hovered over us. There was no sign of his mother, and everything was in place as if nothing had happened. We decided to pack our things and leave immediately. While my friend gathered his clothes in the bedroom, I went to the kitchen. The water jug was exactly where I had left it, but next to it was a note. I picked up the piece of paper, feeling my heart race again. The scribbled words sent chills down my spine. She always comes back when night falls. The note slipped from my hand, and I ran back to the bedroom. My friend was at the door, staring intently at something on the floor. I followed his gaze and saw a red stain that hadn't been there before, slowly spreading across the carpet. We didn't need to say anything. We knew it wasn't safe to stay another minute in that house. We bolted out, leaving everything behind. When we reached the street, a final glance at the house revealed something that made my blood run cold. In the bedroom window, my friend's mother stood, watching us with a sinister smile on her face. She slowly raised her hand and waved before disappearing into the darkness inside. That was the last time I saw my friend. He moved with his father to another city, and we never spoke about that night again. But to this day, when night falls and the house is quiet, I remember that smile, and I can't help but wonder if, somewhere, she's still waiting for us.